All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to talk tonight about the DLP Income and Growth Fund. For those of you who joined us Tuesday night, which a number of you did, we were talking about the Equity Fund 2. This is a very different fund, DLP Income and Growth Fund. In many ways, it's similar in the respect that we're investing in the same types of assets, but a very different structure as far as how you participate as an investor. So in this fund, and really my belief is in any investment, there's two components of success of any investment strategy or any investment decision you make. Number one is the person, the manager, who you invest with, their execution, their principles, and then two is the strategy that manager is investing in. So is it a good plan? Does it make sense? Is it good market timing? And are you invested with the right manager who can actually execute on that strategy? So when it comes to DLP Capital Advisors, who's the general partner, the manager behind all of our investment funds, which I am the CEO and one of three owners of DLP Capital Advisors. You'll hear more about my partners in a moment. We have a few principles here that really drive our investing decisions in this fund, the DLP Income and Growth Fund, as well as all of our funds. And the first principle for us is no losses to investors ever, period. So that's first and foremost in every decision we make on every loan or property we buy, is we have to feel that no questions about it, that we'll be able to protect our investors from any principal losses on their investment within any of our funds. So that's first and foremost. Second principle we have in our investment decisions is consistency. So we're big believers that the key to long-term investments above and beyond not losing money is consistent returns. So you'll find in this fund and all of our funds that we really focus on generating consistent returns month in and month out in this fund, and quarter in and quarter out minimum in all of our funds, where the returns are very, very consistent month in and month out, year in and year out, where you're not having a quarter where you're earning 20%, another quarter where you're earning nothing. Very consistent returns. This fund is as consistent as any fund we have and we've ever had. Number three is investing in what we know at a deep level. This fund, DLP Income and Growth Fund, really invests in everything, in all the asset classes and types of investing that we really understand and know at a deep level. So you're going to see we're not doing big development projects. We're not investing in assisted living facilities. We're not investing in different even real estate asset classes that we don't feel we're truly experts at. And then fourth is to generate as high of a return as possible while keeping these first three principles non-negotiable. So people sometimes say, well, why do you pay investors such high returns? And if you've never seen any of our information before, you might be thinking, what am I talking about? But that's a common question people ask, why do you pay such high returns? And my belief is I want to generate to investors the highest returns I possibly can without those first three principles being sacrificed. And if that's like this fund's been able to do, generate around a 13% net return to investors, then great. But first and foremost, no losses, consistent returns, and investing in what we can mitigate risk by really understanding the assets. So with that said, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, my partners, my team leaders here amongst our companies, and then we'll dive into the strategy of this fund and how you participate in it. So again, I apologize for anybody who was on this Tuesday and kind of just heard this, but I'll repeat it kind of quickly here. Been investing in real estate now for 11 years. I've coming up on 6,000 real estate transactions. Actually now over $800 million in volume. Well over 800 transactions. Properties that we've purchased. Been ranked the Wall Street Journal as one of the top 10 real estate professionals in America the last 2 years, top 25 the last 4 years, and number one in all of Pennsylvania and New Jersey for the past 4 years. I am the CEO and founder of all of the DLP companies, including DLP Capital Advisors, our fund management company you're hearing about here tonight. And then along with my partners here in our funds, we own over 400 properties, including single-family homes, over 2,000 apartments, commercial properties, and residential subdivisions. And then you can see here I have two little boys who are 4 and 5 years old. Actually, Larry and Hickernell, many of you know, and his daughter and my son Donnie, the one on the right, are in the same school, both kindergarten together. and we got to go see them run a 2-mile fun run this morning, which was a lot of fun. And my wife Carla, there on the bottom, we're coming up next month on 7 years of marriage. So a little bit about me personally. And I'm talking to you right now from St. Augustine, Florida. I live in St. Augustine, Florida, as well as in Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania. So a little bit about our team. So I have 2 partners here with me at DLP Capital Advisors, Bob Peterson, who is officially, as of Tuesday, Lehigh Valley CFO of the Year. Really, really excited and proud about that. He's a very modest person, and we'll probably, if you bring it up to him, is going to deflect on it a bit, but it is a really big deal, something we're super proud of here at the company, and just a testament to his amazing talent, ability, depth of knowledge. You can read a little bit about his bio there, but has run large real estate companies, much larger than DLP, before coming here, and instrumental in our growth. And then Barry DeGroot, who's our general counsel, really oversees and helps us mitigate risk in a whole lot of ways, and provide us phenomenal in-house counsel and expertise. Deep background in real estate before becoming a lawyer, and now has been a lawyer for about 16 years. I've been with DLP about 4 years, and is a licensed attorney in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and soon to be Florida. Leadership team here at DLP Capital, of course, the 2 of those gentlemen, along with Larry Hickernell, our Senior Investor Success Manager, Bob Shimanek, our newest Investor Success Manager, really taking the reins of our Pennsylvania investors, as Larry is now residing in Florida. Jeff Miggins, our Director of Accounting. Kevin and Patrick are 2 of our top deal makers, originators of business. Matt Johns, our phenomenal controller. Pat analyzes our acquisitions and our loans. Daniel's our new treasury and fund analyst. Mandy helps coordinate and make everything happen. And Ken Gross helps us in a lot of different ways, handling special projects as an investment manager. And he was our first property manager we ever hired about 7 years ago. So those are some of the leaders who help lead DLP Capital, who's one of the family of companies you can see there. Here's a list of our core companies that really work together to execute our investment strategies. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about them here. You'll hear little bits and pieces about them. But we're a vertically integrated company. We handle all aspects of our real estate investments in-house. These are some of the leaders in our property management company, led by Jason, who's our Senior Vice President, and Jim, who's our Vice President of Property Management, and many great property managers. Our leaders in our construction company, DLP Builders, including Larry Greenberg, who ran one of the largest home builders in Lehigh Valley for about 30 years before becoming our head of construction about 4 years ago. So how we got to where we're at today, which I'll tell you a little bit more about in a moment. Started in real estate about 11 years ago. 10 years ago, started flipping houses. Back then, when we started flipping houses, investors would invest with us by basically making loans to us. We'd pay them 8 to 10% fixed returns. Not all that much different than what we still do to this day with our fixed notes. We started then flipping 30 to 50 homes per year, utilizing investors making loans to us. That quickly grew to flipping well over 100 homes a year. And by 2010, we really started building a rental portfolio as the market hit its bottom. We really felt it was going to rise, and it was a great time to buy assets. We launched our first investment fund then, the DLP Equity Fund 1, to go out there and buy these distressed homes, some apartment buildings, some commercial properties, but primarily single-family homes. We quickly launched our second fund, the DLP Fixed Fund, for investors to be able to make fixed note investments with us within a fund structure. We still operate both of those funds to this day. Neither of them are taking in investors, though, at this time. Quickly, we grew out to the point where we had hundreds of single-family homes. We were a pretty big single-family operator. We realized it was a really tough business to keep scaling, to keep growing, but we knew we had something really great. We knew we had a really great formula with our in-house real estate brokerage, our in-house construction company, our property management, our knowledge, our relationships in this single-family space. And we really decided our best way to grow was to sort of transition from being a single-family operator to being a single-family lender. Instead of just investing in single-family homes for ourselves, making loans to other real estate investors to purchase single-family homes. And that's when we launched Direct Lending Partner, and we really started focusing on private lending to real estate investors. And this has been our number one investment strategy over the past 4 years, our biggest area of growth. We just came off our biggest month ever last month, and it looks like we're going to crush that again this month. We make loans to real estate investors up and down the East Coast, and also allow them to leverage all of our resources. We also then realized, in addition to transitioning into a single family lender as a great strategy for us, the other great way for us to transition was to, as an operator, we really wanted to continue to operate and invest in housing. We realized it was much more scalable to start investing in larger multifamily properties than small single family homes. So we went from having 40 to 50 homes that we were flipping and renovating at all times, 250 or so contractors and carpenters working on our properties at all times, to really focusing on buying 80, 100, 200 unit apartment communities, which gave us a much better ability to scale. So that's what we've been focusing on here for the last 4 years. So to kind of recap, 2007 to 14, we flipped over 500 homes, purchased over 800 homes, grew our real estate brokerage to be number one in Pennsylvania, grew one of the largest construction company, and by this point, DLP Capital Advisors was managing 3 investment funds. From 2014 to 2016, we really, with going into multifamily, we grew property management by over 1,000%, our real estate holdings by over 1,000%. Also started building 2 large subdivisions, grew into the number 8 real estate team in the U.S., grew from over 60 employees to over 150, and grew direct lending partner to one of the largest private lenders throughout the East Coast. Fast forward from 2006 to here we are closing in, believe it or not, the end of Q3, tail end of 2017. We've still are really proud to be able to say we've generated our fixed and our preferred return targets to our investors each and every month since we started bringing in investors back in 2007. We have 0 principal losses, which is our number one principle to any investors in any strategy or any investment that anyone has done with us in any of our funds or any individual investments. We have 5 active investment funds. We now actually have over 300 investors. And apologies, this slide's dated. Over $260 million in assets at this point. And we're now up to 190 employees across 6 states. We've achieved being one of the 5,000 fastest growing companies for 5 straight years, including this past year, which report just came out about 3 weeks ago. We were the 10th fastest growing company in America in all industries out of any companies that have been able to make the list 5 times or more. So we thought that was pretty amazing. We do over 50 million in annual revenue. And again, today we have 2 main strategies: investing in multifamily properties in the Northeast and Southeast, predominantly the Southeast, focused ideally on 100 to 300 unit, although we will buy a 60 unit, 70, 80 unit property. And then lending to investors throughout the East Coast. And DLP Income and Growth, or the DLP Income and Growth Fund, invests into both of these strategies. So this is really the only fund that we have that invests in everything that we do. So invests in both the multifamily properties that we buy and any other type of properties we buy. Like example, we bought a 24-unit condo development in Sea Island, St. Simon Island, a couple months ago. As well as invest in the loans we make to real estate investors, which are mainly against single-family homes. So this fund really invests in everything that we do, invests in both of these strategies. So where we're at today, we have $260 million in assets. By 2025, we expect to have $2 billion in assets. So $1 billion in real estate holdings, which would be 15,000 or so apartments, and over $1 billion in loans. And then by 2030, over $1 billion in investor capital in our funds. So what drives us to accomplishing this is our purpose of living our dream to create prosperity through innovative real estate solutions in those 8 core values you see there, which spell out DLP Elite. Those are really the values that drive me, that drive our leaders, drive in our hiring decisions, and really has built an amazing culture we have that has helped us be the number one workplace in Lehigh Valley, one of the top workplaces in the country. So let's talk specifically about this fund, the DLP Income and Growth Fund, now that you know a little bit more about us. Little quote there, there's only one sound investing, putting all your bones in real estate. So this strategy is solely focused on real estate. Everything we do is backed by real estate, investing both in loans to third-party real estate investors as well as to properties we buy. We are an institutional quality investment manager. You can invest through brokerage custodial platforms like Charles Schwab and Fidelity, Edward Jones, TD Ameritrade, and so forth. We have third-party financial audits on the Income and Growth Fund for 2016, which was our first year of operation, and we will have them again here for 2017 and moving forward. You can invest directly through your IRA, either through your Charles Schwab or brokerage custodial platform or through a self-directed IRA. And you see that little quote there my marketing team added, said, just checking on my 401k. Looks like I get to enjoy the company of my coworkers for another 5 years. So many people we come across deal with the fact that their IRAs, their retirement accounts are sitting stagnant, or in many cases have actually gone down over time. So that's why we think our number two principle of consistent returns when it comes to your retirement account specifically is really, really valuable. We believe in the rule of 72 and the power of that, which is you take 72 divided by the return you earn per year when you're getting a consistent return, and that tells you how long it'll take your money to double. So if you're getting a 10% return on your money, you take 72 divided by 10, that means your money will double in 7.2 years with letting the returns compound and grow. And that's a really cool feeling to be able to say, all right, right now I have 500 grand in my IRA at a 10% return. In 7 years, I'll have $1 million, and have that consistency in your return. That's really what we focus on with retirement accounts, especially. We're endorsed by some pretty big national endorsers, as well as Bobby Gunther Walsh in Pennsylvania, Rich Jones here in St. Augustine and Jacksonville. We have offices throughout Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Florida, mainly in Pennsylvania and Florida. Our properties are, of course, then located in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Florida, but also throughout the states in between. You'll be seeing us continue to build out more and more properties throughout the Carolinas, Georgia, Virginia. On the left, you'll see all of our properties and loans. In the middle, you'll see just our properties. And on the right, you'll see just our loans. And what that means is the properties mean properties that we own, and loans are properties that we have a loan against. We don't own the property. This is a breakdown based on in a chart format of where our money or our capital is based on state. So 49% of our capital is still in Pennsylvania, 25% in Florida, 11% in Georgia, 8% in New Jersey, 4% now in North Carolina, and 3% in South Carolina. 40% of all of our capital is in multifamily, 45% in single family, and 15% in commercial. You will see that multifamily category continue to grow. We have over 300 investors, many of which have been with us for quite a bit of time now, and many who are in multiple funds with us. Warren Buffett attributes his success to being so wealthy, to living in America with great opportunities, having good genes to live a long time, and compounding interest. Again, compounding consistent returns is a big principle to us. So people often ask, well, you're generating these 12, 13% returns, 14% returns to investors, which means in turn we're making loans to real estate investors and double-digit interest rates. Our average interest rate is a little over 13% in the Income and Growth Fund. So people say, well, why do people pay you 13%? Why are people coming to you for loans? Many reasons for it, and a few of the main reasons that this strategy exists, why there's an opportunity for private lenders like a direct lending partner like DLP. Number one is speed, our ability to move very quickly. Banks move incredibly slow. Secondary is banking regulations. Regulations are as tough today as they've probably ever been. Banks are really restricted from making loans against in real estate, and specifically against speculative real estate that's not currently occupied. We're in a country, and certainly the Northeast, especially, where the housing is aging and homes are in need of renovation, which creates a lot of opportunity. And another big opportunity here, something that's opposite of banks, is our loans are short-term in duration, 6 to 12-month loans, mainly 6-month loans. We focus on solving the gap in the need of capital for real estate investors who have opportunities, and passive investors like you looking for strong yields. And we bridge that through this fund by providing the underwriting as well as the capital to be able to make loans, secure loans to real estate investors who have great opportunities in today's market. We also, through this, are able to improve local neighborhoods, drive economies, provide jobs, and great turnkey renovated properties to families for purchase or for rent. Some of the benefits above and beyond the financial benefits of this strategy. So why should you consider investing in this fund? First and foremost is liquidity. Unlike the equity fund 2 that we talked about Tuesday night, this fund is really focused on providing liquidity. It's one of the big benefits of this fund. 90 days is the redemption language in the fund, that you can request redemption with 90 days notice. The reality is we're very liquid in nature. About 35-40% of all of our capital pays off every single 90 days, creating a lot of liquidity. And we've done it many times. We provided liquidity in much shorter time frames than 90 days. So comparatively to most private investment opportunities, highly liquid. This fund generates, for our equity investors in this fund, consistent double-digit returns. The target is 11% net to investors. We've averaged a hair under 13 double-digit returns generated every month. Our loans are all short-term, which helps us mitigate a lot of market risk. We also mitigate risk through high-quality borrowers, low loan-to-values, significant equity being invested, and short duration, again, of the loans. Our average loan-to-value is about 55%. Our average loan-to-cost is about 75%, which means, again, lots of equity is invested. We're making loans to professional real estate investors, including us, including DLP. So our goal is about half the capital to be invested in properties that DLP owns, that we own either ourselves or with partners or with our funds, and then 50% of the capital to be invested to or lent to investors not affiliated with DLP. And the loans made to DLP affiliates are primarily against multifamily properties, and the loans to non-affiliated borrowers are mainly against single-family homes. We are not lending to this guy. So it says, my sister never did get the hang of flipping houses, and you see the feet under the house. Hopefully you get that. Pretty bad joke, but we're focused on making loans to real professional real estate investors. Our average investor has a net worth of about $1 million, income over 100 grand, close to a 700 credit score, and more than 10 real estate investments completed. These are some examples of some of our loans. So notice these are not loans made in big cities. These are mainly suburbia USA. You'll see a lot of these loan to values, the interest rates that we charge. Our average interest rate total that all the loans we make is about 13%. Lots of them throughout Florida, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, but really up and down the East Coast now. Average loans about $200,000. This is a case study of one of our loans. You see some of the pictures there. This is a higher end home, one of the higher end homes we make loans against. We've done. I think it was about a $800,000-$900,000 home. Actually, here's the pictures of it, and here's a little bit of the story. So this borrower is a pretty successful borrower with a full service real estate company in the Philadelphia area. This home's in the suburbs, Bluebell. And he had a 787 credit score, nearly 800. I mean, that's an excellent credit score. He had a net worth of nearly $4 million. We made a $315,000 loan against an $825,000 property, 38% loan to value. He got a really great deal on this property, got it at a great price. Our loan to cost was 68%. We charged 14.99% for a 6-month loan, and he actually sold this home for over $900,000. That was a great loan. It was 875. Here's the final pictures of it. So you see the befores. It was in pretty good shape, but you can see he updated it, cleaned it up, repainted it, some new lighting, and he sold it for 875 when we valued it 825. So that was a really good one, paid off a couple months ago. Here's another example. This was not as pretty of a house, but this is a more typical house, little ranch. Appliances ripped out, a lot of plumbing was ripped out, dated bathrooms, dated flooring, needed paint. Borrower had done 3 flips in 2016. He made an average of almost 40 grand per deal. He had a net worth close to $2 million. This was a $115,000 loan against a $200,000 house, 56% loan to value, 73% loan to cost, 13% interest rate. This is pretty much the exact average loan for us. And then this is what it looked like at the end. So he didn't really fully remodel the kitchen, but put in some decent appliances, cleaned it up, some new counters, repainted it, all new bathroom, double vanity, cleaned it up nice, cleaned up the outside, new windows, shined it up. And he actually sold this home for 15 grand more than the $205,000 appraisal. So we actually sold it for 220. There's another one in New Smyrna, Florida. You see, this was a home that was basically gutted, little tiny house. So he had a 733 credit score. He had done multiple investment properties, $1.2 million net worth, 192 grand loan, 316 value, 61% loan to value, 70% loan to cost, 13.5% rate. And he sold this for actually 70 grand over asking price. This is a pretty cool restoration. Look at that house there. To look at it here, he enclosed this into a garage, beautiful big brand new kitchen. Really did an excellent job, high end finishes, and again got 385, 70 grand over our value when we did the loan. I think this is the last one. This one's in New Jersey. It's a fire damaged house, pretty run down. Pool hadn't been used in a long time. A lot of it was gutted, and guy had about an 800 grand net worth. Had done quite a few flips. He also provided us some 4 properties as additional collateral that were free and clear, which was a nice added security. So a small loan, only 84 grand against a $200,000 property, 41% loan to value, and gave us another property with 200 grand as collateral, 4 properties worth over 200 grand collateral. And this is what he turned this house into. So here was the before, here's the after. Another really nice high-end renovation. Sold it for 5 grand more than the value we put on it. So those are some examples of the loans we make. The other side of our business, and this is what the DLP Equity Fund 2 does exclusively, is the other side of our business is buying B and C class multifamily. I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining this strategy, but we buy distressed B and C class non-luxury apartment communities. This is a great example of one of these properties. This is a loan that the DLP Income and Growth Fund made. 128 apartments. When we bought it, 40 of the apartments were in need of renovation, hadn't been rented in many years. $5.5 million purchase. We bought this as a distressed deal through an auction. We had to close in 21 days. And Income and Growth Fund made a loan against this. There was a $1.4 million of equity invested above the Income and Growth loan. A couple of pictures of the inside and an aerial overview. So our strategy is to get these units renovated, and then either refinance it with permanent long-term financing, or potentially turn around and sell it for a profit. We expect the value to be over $9 million within about a year. A lot of times we're coming to these properties, we're doing heavy renovations, like the 40 units in this property that need full renovation. So we're often taking them from looking like this to looking like this. It's a pretty typical apartment renovation for us. Get higher rents, better quality tenants, people stay longer, less maintenance. Most of our properties involve a decent component of renovating apartments. So here's how the fund's actually done. Here's how it's performed. Here's how you would, kind of returns you can be expecting in this fund. So this fund's now been open for 20 months. Our goal has been from day one to generate 11% plus net return to investors. Our net has been 12.56%. I'm sorry, that was the net in Q2. The total now since we started the fund was 12.6%. So this past quarter was almost identical to the average since we opened the fund. Last quarter we had over $2.5 million come into the fund. And you can see the consistency of the fund. Our first quarter, 12.5, second quarter, 12.7, third quarter, 13, fourth quarter, 12.8, our fifth quarter, 12.28, our sixth quarter, 12.56. So very consistent, 1.5% to 2% above the target. If I had to project forward over the next 12 to 18 months, I expect very similar returns, potentially 0.5% to a point higher than what we've done so far. I expect this to be our highest yielding fund outside of the equity fund too, which is a much different horizon of time. And again, has audited financials for 2016. So we're loaded with opportunities right now, which is, we call this our opportunity fund, which the fund can invest in anything we do. We have no challenge with deal flow, great opportunities, better quality deals, frankly, we're getting today than we've ever gotten before, and really driving amazing opportunity and helping us drive these yields. Our biggest challenge in hitting these 12, 13, 14% returns is keeping our money deployed. That's the biggest challenge at the end of the day, and we've been doing that really well and expect to be able to continue to do so with the strong deal flow we have. Right now in this fund, 41% of the money is in Florida, 33% in Lehigh Valley, 18% in any other states that we're in, really up and down the East Coast, 4% in South Carolina and 4% North Carolina. 33% in multifamily, 17 commercial, 50% in single family. Again, here's the exact overview of the fund, how you get paid as an investor. So it's 11% targeted annual return. You can reinvest you can redeem your investment at any time with 90 days notice, but realistically, we can redeem it even faster. The preferred return, the amount you earn before we earn anything, is 10%. That gets paid out every month. That's a monthly 10% annualized return. And then our goal is to hit at least 11. All the profits we generate above 10 gets paid out on a quarterly basis. So example, we've been averaging about 12.6. So 10% annualized gets paid out every month. At the end of the quarter, once we figure out the exact yield for the quarter, we pay out the additional profits in a fourth distribution. So if you're taking distributions, you get 4 distributions every quarter, or you can let the returns compound and grow. Again, yes, we have audited financials. After we hit the 10% preferred return to you, you continue to get 80% of all the profits. We get 20. You can invest through your IRA. It's a great fund to invest through your IRA. You can invest through your brokerage account. This is a $250,000 minimum as an equity investor, $100,000 minimum as a note investor, which I'm going to talk about next. If you're already an investor with us, there is no minimum. You can add any amount of money once you're an investor with us. All right, and then also once you become an investor of ours, you can always add at any time. You could invest $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000 at any time. You don't have to invest large chunks at a time. So that's as an equity investor. That's where you're a limited partner within this fund. The second option within this fund is you can invest as a note holder, meaning you're actually making a loan to the fund. So instead of being a partner in the fund, you're making a loan to the fund. And as a fixed return note holder, first and foremost, most importantly, is you're getting a fixed return. It is a guaranteed return from us. That means we are obligated to pay you that fixed return regardless of our returns, regardless of the profits we generate. It is not guaranteed by the FDIC, of course, but it is guaranteed by us. We sign a contract with you guaranteeing that return. So that return, again, that fixed return, depends upon 2 factors. It depends upon how much money you choose to invest. The minimum is $100,000. So as you invest more money, as you can see on that chart, your returns go up. And then the second option is how long you want to make a commitment for. You can commit for 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years. And based on the amount of time and the amount of money, your rate will go up. So the minimum is 6.5% for 100 to 250,000 for a 1-year investment. The maximum is 10%. The returns on the left are if you take distributions every month. We pay out distributions every single month, directly ACH'd into your account by the first of every month, like clockwork. Or you can let the returns compound and grow. And on the right, you'll see what the yield would be with the returns compounding and growing every month. You can switch at any time from taking monthly distributions or letting it compound. And you can also get creative. You could take part of the distributions monthly, let some of it compound. You can take the distributions on a quarterly basis or once a year. It's really flexible to what your goals are, but it's simple. You can take distributions or not. It's up to you. And it's a fixed return, and you're also at the lowest end of the capital stack. This means you get paid first. You're at the lowest risk position of any investor, and we believe that this is one of the lowest risk positions you can be an investor in really any strategy. We stack this up against nearly any investment you could look at and feel outside of, depending on your confidence in the federal government, outside of your money sitting in a bank account. I don't think there's a lot of options, especially not any options that pay these kind of returns, that do a better job of mitigating risk. So why would you want to invest as a note holder versus investing as a partner? Well, again, it's fixed returns that we're obligated to pay to you. Again, it's the lowest risk of any of our investments. And in this fund, specifically this DLP Income and Growth Fund, you get amazing diversification of many different investors, multiple asset classes, and a mix of equity and debt assets, meaning some of the properties DLP owns, some of them are loans to other borrowers. All of the assets, though, within the fund are loans, meaning the income and growth makes loans against every property, does not own any real estate at this time. It could, it's allowed to make preferred equity investments, but it doesn't currently have any preferred equity investments. All of the assets are loans. Hopefully that gives you an idea. The first time hearing about us, understanding this is a great deal. We really do an excellent job of mitigating risk while still generating strong returns. So to recap, I'm going to just pull up this slide one last time. Again, 10% preferred return, 11% targeted return. We've averaged 12.6, very consistent. You can invest through your IRA, through your brokerage account, take distributions monthly, let it compound and grow, redeem your investment in 90 days or less, or invest as a note holder and get a fixed return of 6.5 to 10%. So with that said, a lot of information. I'm going to open it up to questions. A reminder, there's a chat box in the bottom left there. You can go ahead and type in any questions. I already see some questions are coming in, and I will go ahead and answer all questions. While you guys type those questions in, I just want to give you guys a heads up, a reminder. We do have 2 upcoming events, and I just noticed the one date isn't updated. So if you're in Florida, next Thursday, basically this time next week, I'll be hosting an informational dinner in Jacksonville. And then a month, exactly 4 weeks from next week, we're holding a big dinner. It's actually going to be October 26th. Information on this will go out in a couple days at Green Pond Country Club in Bethlehem. And that'll be not only an informational dinner, but also be our quarterly investor dinner and happy hour as well. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start tackling some of these questions that have come in. All right, so the last 2 years have been really strong, rising market for real estate and equities. What might we expect if the economy goes into a recession? Question mark, bad loans, question mark. Yeah, so great question. So yes, the market overall, really all markets have been doing really well the last couple of years, as we all know. We really project out, first and foremost, let me say, we really do expect the real estate market to continue to remain very strong for the next 12 to 18 months. And really none of us can accurately predict beyond 12 to 18 months with a high level of confidence and certainty. So when it comes to the next 12 to 18 months, we predict to continue to be able to generate very similar returns to what we've been generating for it to be a really strong market. Now, looking beyond that, I do predict personally that in the next 2 to 3 years, there will be some level of a real estate recession. Market will slow down. We may see some price decline. And that's one of the main reasons that we focus on making short-term loans in this fund. Our loans are typically 6 to 9 months. So if the market starts going to decline, we're not stuck in loans with the assets declining in value. We're able to get out of the loans fairly quickly and reevaluate any future originations of loans. So in addition, in most markets that we're in, I think really every market we're in, there was never a decline in values greater than about 15% in a single year. In a lot of markets like Lehigh Valley, there wasn't a decline greater than 9% in a single year. So when you think about that and you think our loans are 6 to 9 months, that means at most you're going to see 6, 7, 8% decline in values. Well, our average loan to value is 55%. So we're in a really good position that even if there was that kind of decline, we're well protected. So if the market really goes into a heavy recession, worst case scenario we see as a practical worst case scenario is we can't continue to make loans where we appropriately can mitigate risk, and we have to return investors' capital to them. We don't expect that to be the case. We think more likely would be we have to lend to only the very strongest investors, maybe even have to reduce our loan to costs and loan to values even lower. And then because we're only lending to the best investors and we're getting even more conservative, maybe we won't be able to hit 12, 13, 14% returns. And maybe we'll have to come to investors and say, hey, looking forward to next year, we're only expecting to average 9 or 10%. And then you'd have the option to redeem your investment and leave the fund or stay in if you're not satisfied with the returns. But we won't take on more risk to continue to maintain returns. We would lower return expectations to continue to mitigate risk. Again, don't expect that anytime soon. I really don't think that'll happen at all. I think we'll be able to continue to generate double-digit yields. But those are things we keep an eye on, and we try to do a really good job every quarter of explaining to all investors what's going on in the market, what we're expecting to go on in the market here in the next quarter, the next year, and discuss how that's going to affect us and how we're going to adjust our strategy. So hope that answers your questions. And then as far as losses on a loan, we've never had a bad loan. We've never lost money on a single loan. So we have had some defaults and some workouts, but we've never lost money on a loan. But even if we did lose money on a loan, we have a loan loss reserve account where we have money set aside to cover any losses on a loan. That money that's set aside is not your money. It's our money, meaning it's our profits for DLP Capital Advisors. It's the general partner's money that we've held back from taking our profits to set up a loan loss reserve account. So if we were to lose money on a loan, the money would first come from that loan loss reserve account, which should cover any losses, and that would come from my pocket, not from yours. All right, so next question, how does our deal flow look? So we have great volume of deals right now, both in terms of acquisitions and in terms of loans to third-party borrowers. Our expectations in 2008 is that we'll originate over $100 million in loans and we'll purchase around $100 million worth of real estate. So about $200 million in volume. It certainly takes more effort, more prospecting effort, more offers, more evaluation to find a deal than it did a couple years ago. But the deals are still there, and because of our growth and our size and our relationships, we're getting more and more deal volume brought to us, and we have no slowdown in quality deals. All right, next question. Regarding redemptions during a recession, any maturity mismatch with loans from Income and Growth Fund to DLP Equity Fund, which may have longer lockups in the fund. How do you plan for these mismatches? So I don't know if I'm going to answer this question perfectly. So if I don't, please enter in another question there. So the Income and Growth Fund, all of the loans made are 6 to 9 month loans. So right now the fund doesn't have any loans to the Equity Fund 2, which I think is what the question was. But it could, but it would be a short-term loan until takeout financing came in, until we brought in permanent financing. So all of the loans are short-term in duration. There's no long-term maturity to any of the loans, and there's no plan of any long-term lending. They're all designed to be short-term loans to facilitate the purchase and stabilization of a property. So we don't expect any challenges from that standpoint. So yep, I did answer the question. Great. All right. So how does this fund compare to the lending fund? All right, great question. So on Tuesday night, we talked about the Equity Fund 2, which is a fund that owns apartment communities, very different structure, longer term fund, a lot of tax benefits. You're owning apartment communities as a passive investor versus in this fund, you're owning loans that are backed by real estate, which is exactly the same as the lending fund. So both the lending fund and the Income and Growth Fund own loans. The difference between the two funds, a couple things. Number one is the lending fund only makes loans to third-party borrowers. It does not make loans to properties in which DLP owns. Now, I should preface that it can. It's allowed to. It's just we don't actively do that. And all the loans are currently to third-party borrowers. Versus the Income and Growth Fund is designed for some of the money to be third-party borrowers, to borrow to properties that we don't own, and some of the properties to be owned by DLP. We believe that to be a great benefit to this fund in a couple ways. First and foremost is that we believe it mitigates risk, it provides more diversification. We certainly believe, and we think most of our investors agree, that we're the strongest borrower that we're going to make a loan to. We're the biggest, most financially sound borrower that we can make a loan to. And of course, we have more control over the success of a property that we own than when we make a loan to somebody else. So we believe we actually mitigate the risk quite a bit when we're the borrower. But maybe the most important difference of all, or main reason really to why we have the Income and Growth Fund. So the whole reason we opened this fund at the beginning of 2016 was the lending fund was only making loans to third-party borrowers, and we'd have times where the lending fund would have a whole bunch of money, um, and didn't have didn't necessarily, it would be for short periods of time, but had more money than loans, and we had a need for the money on properties we were buying, but it wasn't really designed to make loans to us. So we'd have cash sitting in the bank in the lending fund when we had deals we could put that money on. And then we have the other side of the equation where we'd have a need for money for loans, but lending fund wouldn't have the capital, but we would have a greater demand. So we said we need to put a fund in place that will help us. And I should mention at the time, the fixed fund, the DLP fixed fund, which still operate, would make loans to properties that we buy. So we had the fixed fund making loans to us, and we had the lending fund making loans to other borrowers. And there'd be times where one fund would have cash or better deal flow, but they couldn't kind of cross over. So we said we need to come up with one fund that can invest in all of our strategies so that we can manage cash flow better. I said the times, if you look at our history, like in the lending fund, when we've had our worst month ever in the lending fund was 12.33%. Our best month was 20% annualized. The difference between that return really had to do with how much cash was sitting in the bank. So we realized that cash flow is our biggest challenge in generating these returns. So we wanted to have a fund that allowed us to manage cash better. So because this fund does the best job of any of our funds at being able to manage cash flow, we actually do expect that over the next 12 to 18 months, that this fund will outperform the lending fund by a 0.5% to 1% better return. So we believe it actually mitigates risk better than the lending fund, while we expect it to generate a slightly better return. Um, so those are the kind of main difference. The only other difference between the two funds is the lending fund does pay out all the distributions on a monthly basis, versus the income and growth fund pays out distribution, the preferred 10% return on a monthly basis, and that returns over that on a quarterly basis. And one last factor or thing to mention about the two funds, when we make loans to third-party borrowers in the income and growth fund, we primarily do that by the income and growth fund purchasing or investing into the lending fund as a limited partner, just like you would buys units within the lending fund. And we do that to avoid any conflict of having to choose which loan goes into which fund, so that both funds are sharing in the same loan and nobody has any preferential placement on a loan, and there's no conflict of us picking and choosing which fund gets the loan. And when the income and growth fund makes a loan or invests in the lending fund, we don't earn any fees on the income and growth fund money. So we're not double dipping and earning fees on both funds. Um, so I think that's an important mention, that it avoids any conflict between which fund gets which deals. Right. I don't think I see any other questions here. Yeah, okay. Are audited financials available? Yep, they are. So we'll make sure, two things I want to mention after this. So by tomorrow, we'll send you guys out the recording of this webinar. Also, if you have not already been in dlpcrowd.com, dlpcrowd.com, Larry and Bob will make sure you get in there, but you get set up in that system by tomorrow. I think just about all of you looking at the list, at least many of you are in DLP Crowd. So when you're in DLP Crowd, you can click on the investment opportunities, and you'll see the income and growth fund, the lending fund, the equity fund too. And when you click on any of those funds, you can see the past quarterly financials, the balance sheets, the P&Ls, and actually also see the third-party audits in there as well. So all of that is available. If you don't easily find it, Larry or Bob again will follow up and direct you on how to easily see that. But yes, everything is transparent. There's no black box. You see our actual financials, what we're doing, how we're investing, and we try to actively communicate, exactly what's going on and what we're projecting moving forward. All right, another question here: how did the recent weather in Florida affect the assets of the fund, and would this exposure of future investors be to any losses? Yeah, great question. So, so first and foremost, we don't expect. Not only don't expect, we will not have any effects from Irma on the income and growth fund. So the income and growth fund does not own any of the properties. It owns loans against the properties. So as the lender, we're not dealing with you as investor in the fund. We're not dealing with the cost of any additional expenses in owning the property. It's not quote unquote our problem as a lender. Now, where of course the risk would come in place. Well, if there's a lot of damage and the borrower can't afford to fix it, then what, right? Well, that's why we make sure that all of our borrowers have great insurance coverage and that we're listed as the insured lender on that policy. And we have an in-house insurance expert who's our servicing manager, Kate, who verifies every one of our borrowers has the proper insurance before we close a loan. And then we went through an exercise before Irma of checking in on all their insurance policies, making sure they're all valid, which is something we're always doing, but we put some extra attention on it, of course. And then as soon as the storm happened, we sent out surveys to all of our borrowers, getting them to report their damage to us. And also we've been out inspecting them ourselves as well. And thus far, there's been actually no serious cases of damage on any of our loans, which is pretty astounding. But if there was, we have proper insurance coverage for it. Now, in some of our other funds, like the Equity Fund 2, we do own the properties, and we did have damage from the storm. The first property we bought in the Equity Fund 2 in Titusville, Florida, had a tree come through a roof and had a number of trees come down, a number of roof leaks. But again, we have great insurance. We have an umbrella insurance policy across all of our properties, and we have great expertise in handling these insurance claims, and we don't expect to have any significant out of pocket expenses other than putting some money out of pocket and then getting reimbursed by insurance from the damage. So insurance is the key to these types of things, and we make sure to have great coverage for us as a borrower as well as for our borrowers we make loans to. So great question. All right, I don't see any other questions there. So with that said, we'll make sure, again, everybody's in DLP crowd, make sure all of you guys get this webinar. I appreciate everybody's time here. And after this webinar, if you're interested in learning more, many of you guys are already investors of ours, but if you are or if you're not, and you want to dive more into this fund, again, we'll be reaching out to you in the next couple of days and love to talk one-on-one either with myself or with Bob or Larry to answer any additional questions you may have. So again, thanks everybody. Hopefully if you're down here in Florida, you can join us next Thursday, same time. And then again, October 26th, 5 Thursdays from today in the Lehigh Valley. So again, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your evening. Bye-bye.